I never thought I'd end up fighting to keep my land. It started with a simple trip back home, expecting to see my ranch just as I left it, quiet, familiar, untouched. Instead, I found earth torn open like a battlefield, trenches carved deep across my pasture, pipes snaking through the soil where I'd walked since I was a kid. Someone had illegally installed water infrastructure on my land, without a word, without permission. I drove the perimeter with my GPS and saw it clear. Nearly 2 miles of my property sliced apart, invaded. The next day, a fancy letter arrived, Canyon Ridge Estates HOA, claiming I was part of their sphere of influence, and that water was now running through my land for the community's benefit. I knew this was a lie. I hadn't signed anything, hadn't agreed to their scheme. I called their office, but the line was dead, and their voicemail full. I drove there in person, ready to raise hell. The building looked like a spa, overdone and shiny. When I tried to go inside, a security guard stopped me. "Do you have an appointment?" he asked coldly. I told him who I was, that they'd crossed a line. He said appointments were scheduled through some online portal, 8 weeks away. 8 weeks? I knew then this was no accident. They'd moved in, taken my land, and now they expected me to wait. I went home, found a printed invoice duct taped to my gate, $60,000 for connection fees and utilities. Access? No way. I crumpled it in my hand and shoved it in my pocket. That night I saw their men working around the pipeline, acting like they owned the place. I called the sheriff, but he just looked at me and said, "You planning to press charges?" I told him, "Next time I won't bother calling you." They kept pushing, fencing off parts of my land, installing more equipment, acting like this was their right. I even caught them trying to lock me out of my own property. Then came the legal threats, letters claiming I was interfering with public safety, demanding I pay hundreds of thousands for water I never agreed to. The HOA was clearly overstepping, stealing what was mine, pretending they had authority I never gave. I reached out to a lawyer, pulled old deeds, and found what I'd suspected. I owned the mineral and water rights outright, in perpetuity. They'd stolen my water, and I had proof. I filed my own paperwork, hired experts, and started fighting back. I bought the water rights from the old water district, legally, officially, completely. I drafted a notice. Effective immediately, all unauthorized water extraction must cease. I sent it to them, and watched as their response was to try to shut me down, to paint me as a villain. But I was ready. They filed court injunctions, but I countered with facts. No permits, no easements, no legal authority. I turned off their water source myself, shut the valve, and watched the neighborhood go silent. People started complaining. No water, no showers, no gardens. Linda McCall, their president, tried to spin it as a hostage situation. But I knew better. I had the legal rights, the proof, and the will to stand my ground. And then it happened, their last move. I found out they'd tried to block my pipes, to fence me out, to make me disappear. I responded with a direct threat. I'd take control of the entire water district, buy out the company that owned the infrastructure, and drain their power like they drained my land. I made an offer to the city. If they dissolved the HOA, I'd supply water directly to the residents at a fraction of the cost. They laughed at first, but then the pressure built. One morning, I turned the main valve myself, just a slow twist. Quietly. Almost too quietly. I watched the water stop flowing to their pipelines, saw their faces in the news as they scrambled to respond. The HOA tried to sue, tried to call me a villain, but the truth was clear. I owned my water, and I wasn't giving it up without a fight. In weeks, they dissolved the HOA. The community started to wake up, neighbors demanding their rights, families standing up, even the town council backing me. I bought the old water district, took control of the infrastructure, and turned the tables completely. No more secret pipelines, no more lies. Just clean water, flowing where it belonged. On my land, and for everyone who refused to be bought or bullied out of their rights. That was just the beginning. Because I learned, water isn't just life, it's power. And once you own it, no one can take that away. I turned the valve slowly, feeling the weight of the moment settle in my hand. The moment I'd been planning for weeks, maybe months. The water stopped flowing to their pipelines, silent, almost too quiet. I watched the neighborhood in the distance, lights flickering out, water silence settling like a heavy blanket over everything. I knew this wouldn't go unnoticed for long. Almost immediately, the chaos began. Phones lit up with alerts, neighbors rushing outside, shouting, banging on doors. The HOA's PR team scrambled to spin it, blaming me, calling it sabotage, saying I was trying to starve the community, but I didn't care. I'd done what I set out to do. I had taken back control of what was mine. Then the first response came. A call from Sheriff Dunn, voice tense but cautious. "You realize this is going to escalate, right?" he asked. I didn't need to answer. I knew he was right. The HOA was already gathering their forces, trying to pretend this was a technical failure, a mistake. But I had the proof, my water rights, the legal documents, the map showing the entire pipeline feeding their systems. This wasn't a mistake. It was theft. Suddenly, sirens blared in the distance, HOA trucks with flashing lights heading toward my property. I grabbed my phone and snapped pictures of the pipelines, the valves, the control stations. They were trying to repressurize the system, but I'd already cut the main line. They couldn't fix what I'd broken. Not yet. Then came their boldest move. Armed men in tactical gear showing up at the edge of my land, trying to intimidate me into stepping down. They claimed they had a court order, that I was obstructing public safety infrastructure. Stared straight at them, unblinking. "You're trespassing," I told them. "Get off my land," but they didn't listen. Instead, they called in reinforcements. 2 more SUVs screeched to a halt, men jumping out, guns hidden but ready, surrounding the pipeline like it was some kind of hostage. I kept my calm, but inside my mind was racing. This was war. I had the legal high ground, and I knew it. I had. The documents, the permits, the rights. I had bought the water district, taken the legal ownership of the entire infrastructure. They'd stolen from me, and I'd finally taken it back. They kept pushing, trying to force their way past my fences, trying to erect barriers around what I owned. I called Sheriff Dunn again, told him to send backup. This wasn't just a dispute anymore, it was an invasion. And then, just as I expected, they made their next move. A drone buzzed overhead, low and fast, camera lenses zooming, trying to record my every move. I watched it, knowing it was a threat, an attempt to gather evidence to use against me. But I had something else. I pressed a button on my remote, an old device I'd rigged months ago. A low hum filled the air, and suddenly the drone sputtered, sparks flying from its underside. It jerked, spun out of control, then plummeted into the field with a deafening crash. The sky, once filled with buzzing, was now eerily silent. I saw their faces on the ground, stunned as their eyes darted in disbelief. That's when I knew I was winning. They had underestimated me, thought I was just some stubborn rancher. But I was more than that now. I was the owner of my water, the master of my land, and they had no idea what I was capable of. I moved to the main control panel, turned the valve back on for my own system, slow, deliberate, in full view of everyone. The water surged again, flowing freely, restoring life to my land and to the people I'd promised to protect. The neighborhood's lights flickered back on. The silence broke with cheers from the distant crowd, neighbors finally realizing I was fighting for them too. And I knew this was just the beginning, because next I'd go after the HOA's entire operation. I'd take legal control, buy out their infrastructure, and finally put an end to this nightmare. No more threats, no more illegal pipes, no more lies. Just pure, undeniable power, water, and the rights that came with it. They'd pushed too far, and now they'd regret it. Because I was no longer just a rancher. I was a man who owned his land, his water, his future, and I was going to make damn sure they never took it from me again. The water surged through the pipes again, roaring like a beast unleashed, flooding the land with life and leaving the HOA's plans in ruins. I stood there watching it all unfold, knowing I had finally won. Not just a battle over pipes and rights, but the war for my land, my water, my future. The neighborhood erupted in cheers, neighbors pouring out their doors, some crying, some shouting, all staring at the miracle of flowing water that I had reclaimed. But I didn't relax. I had seen what they were capable of. The drone, the armed men, the legal threats, they'd come close to breaking me. And I knew, deep down, they wouldn't give up so easily. This was more than a fight over land. It was a battle for control, for power, and they wouldn't let go quietly. Suddenly my phone buzzed. I looked down, a message. It was from an unknown number. I hesitated but opened it. The words made my blood run cold. "You think this is over? You've only just begun. The real game is behind the scenes. Watch your back." A chill ran through me. I scanned the message again, trying to understand. No signature, no clue. Who sent it? Just that ominous warning. I felt a flicker of doubt. Was this a threat or a warning? Either way, it meant they hadn't given up. Not yet. Then the ground beneath my feet trembled slightly. At first I thought it was just an earthquake, or a truck passing by. But no, it was something else, something bigger. A distant rumble growing louder, vibrating through the earth like a warning. I looked toward the horizon, and there it was. A dark cloud of dust rising behind the hills, moving fast. That's when I remembered the old stories. The ones the elders who used to tell about the land, about how it fought back when pushed too hard. I realized with a sinking feeling that this wasn't just the HOA trying to retake what they lost. No, this was something else, something darker. In the distance I saw it, massive machinery, heavy, relentless, tearing into the earth like a beast, devouring everything in its path. Bulldozers, cranes, and trucks, all heading straight for my land. They weren't coming to negotiate. They were coming to wipe it out. My heart pounded. I reached for my phone, about to call Sheriff Dunn, but then I paused. I knew I couldn't stop this with a phone call. I had to act fast, smarter. I looked around and my mind raced. This wasn't just a fight over water anymore. It was a fight for my life, my land, my very soul. I sprinted toward the old barn, grabbing a shovel and a few tools. I knew what I had to do. No one was going to bulldoze my home, not without a fight they'd never forget. I ran to the pipeline, the pipes still humming with life, and I started digging around the main line. If I could sabotage their machinery, slow them down, I might buy enough time. Just then, a booming voice echoed from behind. "Stop right there!" I turned. It was a man in a suit, flanked by security guards. He looked like a developer, powerful, confident. He smiled coldly. "Mr. Marshall, this land belongs to Progress. We're just doing what's necessary for the future." I stared him down, gripping my shovel tighter. "This land belongs to me," I said. "And you're not taking it without a fight." He chuckled. "Oh, I think you'll find you're not as powerful as you believe. You fought hard, but in the end, money talks. And I've got plenty of it." I looked past him, at the machinery, closing in behind, the earth trembling again. I knew I couldn't let it happen, not this time. I lifted my shovel, ready to strike, knowing that I wasn't just fighting for my land. I was fighting for every soul who believed in standing tall against those who tried to steal everything. And in that moment, I realized the truth. This wasn't just about water. It was about power, about control. And I was about to take it back, by any means necessary. The dust clouds billowed higher, the engines roared louder, but I didn't back down. I raised my voice, shouting into the chaos. "This is my land, my water, my fight, and I'm not giving up." Because I finally understood, no matter how dark it got, I held the key, and I would fight to the end to keep what was mine.